Hey guys, my name is Driven Phoenix and welcome to the Structure of Man. Learn to draw the human figure from your mind figure uh, training course. So in the previous lesson, we went through this process of proving that all the hard work that we've been doing has really paid off because we proved it onto paper. And that is the most important part of figure drawing, is to prove that what you are trying to understand using these ideas of artistic thinking is really working. Okay, so since we've now done this, what we need to do now is obviously go through a process, and this is really what I call, this is where we're going to go through this very pivotal moment in the structure of man, where you will begin to see as to how we will develop the understanding of the entire skeleton structure, right? So it's really the story of figure drawing that we're going through, that we're putting inside the mind as to how it understood the complete concept of the figure that we created from scratch in a 3D form. So what we have to do now is understand, okay, how do we draw this in a 3/4 view, right? So to do that, here I'm going to show you just the first fundamental concepts of formulas, right? What we went through are the basic rules and formulas that we created. But now we need to understand how can we use the power of formulas to help the mind understand really in a very simple and detailed uh, way. So when it draws something in 3D, something like this, so it draws it correctly. Okay, so here is just the first idea of formulas, but we will actually get into much more important formulas, meaning that you don't really have to use the formulas. The formulas are really used to force the mind to see things. So what we need to do is look at the side view of the figure, and this will help us understand how to draw it in a 3/4 view. So to do that, I want you to take this drawing here. You can draw this drawing again if you wanted to, but I'm just going to use this. Since I have this, what I want to do is understand how would I draw this in 3D. And to do that, what I'm going to do is first put this guy inside a long rectangle. So I'm going to draw a line over here, and obviously I'm just going to look at the center line over here and draw a line over here. I'm going to look at where this is, right? So it's over here. So basically, we actually had measured it correctly like this anyways, right? So we know that this is going to go really in this direction, like this, and just, you don't have to use a ruler, just sketch out this box here. And over here it's going to be the same thing, right? It's just going to be this box going really just in this direction over here. Right? It's just a very simple idea for the box. Right, so really the box should be just equal in how it's being done. I'm just rubbing it in for you here. Right, so here I've just made some of these lines a little fuzzy, so it might look like that this is shorter, but really it's going to be the same. Okay, so here where the crotch is, I'm just going to divide this in half over here. Okay, now, and we'll use this understanding of this. So basically where all the lines are, I want you to mark this in half over here. This is where the line for the bottom of the chin is going to be. This is where the pec muscles is, and this is basically where the navel is, right? It's just divided in 4 different sections. And over here, it's going to be the line for where the knees are supposed to be above. Knees are going to be here, but this is that line. So I want you to take a look at this grid over here, right? So what we have to do is now use this knowledge to begin to draw this out in a 3D form. So I'm just going to move this here to the side over here, right? And we're going to understand this on this section here. right? So what we want to do is draw this thing over here in 3D. So to do that, here we can just draw out. Actually, I can just draw it on this paper over here. Okay, I'm going to draw from here like this, a line like this. All right, I'm drawing a center line, which is the same center line here. This line here, I'm drawing it out like this. Okay, now I'm going to turn this into 3D, meaning just basically make it go into perspective like this, just like this. Okay, and here I'm just going to roughly say that this is how it's going to be in 3D. That meaning that this section here that I'm drawing is going to be shorter, and this is going to be a little bit larger, right? Just draw it in 3D, just like this, just rough it in, because you really just need to be approximate this. It's really the exercise to understand how this whole thing works. So if I divide this line in half, which is going to be about here, really it's just going to be a straight line. This straight line is this line right here. Okay, then if I divide this in half for the pec muscles, I'm going to go a little bit in perspective in this way, right? This is the line here again for the bottom of where the knees are supposed to be, right? So this gives us like a three-dimensional grid over here, exactly here. And here I'm just going to do the same thing here for the bottom of the chin, and this is where obviously the navel is supposed to be, right? It's going to be just like this, like just rough it in, no big deal. Okay, so once we have this, all we have to do is now translate this design over here so we can begin to understand how this thing needs to be turned into 3D, right? And this is where we're now beginning our process of beginning to develop a very good understanding of the skeletal structure in 3D, but we have to first do this exercise, and you will see the power of this. So all we have to do is now just look at this and say that, okay, well, when I did this, I really just need to draw this in a much more 3D way here, right? It's just you're drawing the same thing, you're just drawing it in 3D. You obviously have like an oval this time, right? Remember, it's not going to be here because you got to look at this, right? So you know you did this, and this is going to be the jaw over here like this. We know that this is where the neck is. We know that this is where the clavicle was. It has to be halfway here, going in this, right? Just look at this if you need to translate it, but I would really just follow the formulas. This is where right, I knew that this is where the clavicle was. I came here because this is over here. I'm going to curve like this, meaning I'm just going to curve over here like this. I'm going to go back, look where this is. I'm going here. I'm going to make this over here, just like this. I just need to get the idea down, right? Over here, it's very simple. I just did from here, right? Really, from here to here is really divided in 3 different parts, and you're just going to make it like this, right? And that's it. And then obviously that line was over here, and then you got your foot over here like this, right? And that's it. So, and this is where the joint was for the hand. Now don't draw the hand out. So to turn this into 3D, we just need to look at this, right? So here I'm just going to erase some of these lines here so they don't become kind of dark. Should be kind of light here like this. So we just need to turn it into 3D, but looking at this and saying that, okay, three-dimensionally this guy is going to be like this, and here is where you will begin to notice a frustration process that your mind might go through, right? So here we need to now somehow turn this thing into 3D like this, so it begins to develop into like a 3D form here, right? And here you'll see that the mind is not some things that the mind is not going to be able to comprehend here as to how is this even supposed to look here, right? But you can wing it You can just wing it by looking at this, right? It was just a ball shape over here. And that's basically it. You can just rough it in, right? I'm just going to rough it in. I know that this was a circle over here. This was like this. And over here, now we get into that idea of, okay, well, I mean, over here I see it, over here I see it. How does it go here, right? How do you determine this? Well, just look at this. It's just halfway. It's obviously going to be here, right? If we did a line like this and went this way, and on the other side it's going to be just this way. So meaning that the legs are really just going to be like this, and we can make like a basic, very basic, rough idea of the figure in 3D like this, right? And this obviously, as we had said, it has to be on the back over here, right? So it's got to be somewhere here, right? And it cannot collide. So you can't put it here, but so it's got to be somewhere roughly over here, right? So we can do the same thing over on the other side. And then over here, when we draw it in 3D, we can see that all we need to do is do something like this, right? So once we have that concept down in 3D, we can see that the mind is going through just a little bit of a frustration process because it doesn't quite get it. It doesn't quite understand some of the design factors that are needed in three-dimensional understanding. And this is where we need to go through a very detailed process of understanding what is it that we are even drawing, right? So if I'm going to erase this, now I'm going to make this nice and clean. So really, I can now just look at these lines here and just look at, okay, but I really wanted to do it this way, right? Because I'm looking at the anomalies that are left behind in my original drawing that I did. And now I'm just going to clean up some of these ideas and really just make this. And here is the line for the knee. So obviously going to be above this. Just like this, right? And over here we can clean this up a little bit more for the feet. That's what I'm drawing over here. For the feet, I'm just going to make them just these ball, like these oval shapes here. It's for the hand. And this is where the clavicle is going to be over here. Right, and this is over here. When we draw this out like this, right, this is where the love handle is supposed to be, right? If the navel is here, if we drew that line out, we know that it's going to be roughly around here, and this is where the love handles should be. Right, so you can see that when we draw it, it's just a rough sketch, right? But we pretty much winged it, and we got to understand how to draw it in 3D. So once we have this down, all we need to do is now train the mind to understand, okay, what were the things that it really should have understood, right? We got it to look in 3D. So if you look at this, right, I'm going to make you notice something here really important, is that if you look at where the jaw is, right, this is the jaw, and here, if I just shade this in, I'm going to shade all this in here, okay, and then look at this space here. Look at the negative space. Look at this negative space here. If we just looked at the black area here, how this is in the front over here, right? There's the line over here like this. Here it goes here. So now you should know that when you're drawing it in 3D, you gotta have that negative space over here also. It's got to exist, right, in this dimensional drawing. So we know that that's what pushes the head out, and this is always at an angle, and we always have to understand that there's a space here, right? So if I go like this in the whole thing, see, all of this is just a negative space. If I just make the lines go like this, if I cut right through it, right? So this is a technique to help the mind to see what it needs to understand when it's drawing this in freehand, right? And over here, we said really just need to do an imaginary line. So when we do this, we note that there's also a negative space right here, right? There's a negative space right here. So you know that this guy here is going to curve into the crotch, And here for the back, where this is, right? If I look at this back here, I know that from the back view, I'm going to get that curve in the back, which I'm not going to draw it here, but this helps you to understand how this is all working in 3D. And if you look at this area here, just examine it on your drawing, that over here from the back, it's going to be like this. Right, so what this means is that now when we draw it freehand, without really measuring anything out with any grids or really anything, we should be able to draw this figure in 3D without much effort because we understand this negative space here, right? There's a negative shape here, here, here. These are like these fundamental key concepts. We don't have to worry about this because, well, this doesn't matter, right? Because when we do the muscles, then we'll understand anyways. But these are the fundamental areas here to understand when drawing your toolkit in 3D, right? We already trained the mind to see how to take a 2D drawing and turn it into 3D. So now let's test this out. So now the question is, okay, well, how do I draw it in 3D without making a straight line? Well, we can look at this and just say, but okay, well, I mean, look at where this line is. So if you just drew this line like this, a line like this, you know that you're going to get the face here and the chest cavity over here. Now, again, when you're going through this exercise that I'm going to show you next, is really just drawing it out and just looking at the lesson over and over, this section of the lesson, but it's really this line here. I don't have to worry about any of this because I know how this curves, right? I just looked at the negative space, right? So if I drew this, I could just do like a curve here, right? If I drew a curve here, just like this, I can look that this is where half of this is just the legs anyways, right? So when I draw it like this, I can just do the legs in this way here. Okay, I'm going to do this a little drawing a little more smaller, but let me just show you that this is what I did over here. And over here, I can just look at this. This is the height, right? I know that the head is going to be here, obviously, right? If the head is going to be here, I know that the chest, I have, right, it's the negative space over here, and that's it, really. And then you can just draw out the chest cavity, and you're done. And basically, we can just draw out, let's say, a hand over here. I'm just sketching it out, just showing you how this can be understood, and you can clean up your drawings as you move along. And basically, that's it. We can just now, right, just rough in the ideas, just like this. Right, so we were able to sketch it out. When we're sketching it out, we know exactly what we're sketching it out. So I'm showing you. Right, so now if I wanted to clean this up, I can just go through my drawing process and now erase some of these lines here, right, these anomalies, because this is really just the first model. So now when I come in here, I know that this is just going to be a circle over here, like this. Right, it's going to be like this, and this is the head, just like that. It's going to be the opening of the head because I understand about the negative space over here. And then over here, I'm just going to go like this because right in the mind, you know that in the back what's going on, you know in the front what's going on, right? And then you can just make your drawing just like this. But notice that when we did this, all we really had to do was look at the height of the figure. We know this is divided in half. We know that from here to here in 3D, the knees are going to be above this, obviously, right? And then when you remember, you're never attached to any of these lines. You can just keep improving it and doing whatever you want with it. And really here, I know that from here to here, right, from here to here, I know that the navel is going to be here, so I can just see that's exactly what that area is. Then over here, it's on the other side. And that gives us a three-dimensional understanding of this, right? So this was like the discovery process that we went through. Now, we don't have to understand this in so much detail. Remember, when you come back to do these drawings like this, you will be able to draw them without any effort because you understand everything about it, the whole muscle structure. But again, the most important part of this, what I'm showing you, is that the process that we went through to understand things using a concept of formulas. The only reason we used the formulas was to force the mind to see, but then we left the formulas behind and just drew a freehand, because it's all about understanding where these negative shapes are, what causes all these angles, right? Only in this idea here. Obviously, when we draw out the actual figure in 3D form, we would know even more. Okay, so it's a process of thinking, right? So to finish this off, this lesson got a little long, but to finish this off, let's say if we did like another pose here. Let's say if I draw a line like this, just like I did here, but I can now do anything I want. And let's say if I want to do one leg like this and maybe another leg like this, right? And then here, for this here, I can just use information from here and train the mind to begin to understand even more ways of drawing out the figure, right? Once I have this, I already know that this is going to be the curve. See, this line means absolutely nothing. This is only to get the idea out. So once you have the idea, you can do really whatever you want with the chest cavity because you know where the space is. Because of the negative space, you just have to draw the head, and that's it, right? Just draw out the head, sketch it out, right? You know that the negative space obviously has to exist in here. You can just draw a lot like this, right? So you'll notice that a lot of artists would be drawing out figures in different ways, and we'll look at them. But this is probably the most basic way of drawing out and sketching out poses. So once you've understood how to really just do this, right, my recommendation is that just try to do all different kinds of poses in this, just understanding that it was this basic toolkit that we went through that we understand how all the formulas work together, right? We can do even the pelvis in a different angle like this, right? And if I, just to prove to you that what I'm showing you is correct, I'm just going to show you that over here, if I look at the proportions, this is just half, right? This is the bottom, the chin, the navel, and this is where the above the knee. Obviously, it's in perspective, right? Over here, 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 this, the navel, and obviously the knees would be above this, right? It just becomes automatic. So I'll see you in the next lesson. Thanks.